Today I'm talking about why my husband and I decided to leave Southwest Washington and move to North Idaho. Very personal topic. Sorry if this is too much too soon. We don't know each other yet, but I thought we might as well just dive right into this because I know it's a question that's going to come up sooner rather than later. So I was raised in Southwest Washington. I'm from Camas. My parents were both born in Oregon. I was born in Oregon. I'm a fourth generation Oregonian. We moved up to Camas when I was 10 years old. I went to through high school in Camas. I lived up in Seattle for 8 years for undergrad at UW, and then went to Seattle Pacific University for a master's. And then my husband and I, when we got married, moved down to Clark County to raise a family. So we were drawn to Clark County for cost of living, among other things, kind of getting away from the crazy traffic and everything of Seattle. And we've lived in Clark County for the last 10 years, 10 and a half years. And since then, we've had 4 kids. Our oldest is in 4th grade, and our youngest is going into kindergarten next year. So all, elementary age kiddos. So a lot has changed in a decade. And we really were never planning on leaving this area. Even my husband's parents moved to Vancouver to follow us, to be around grandkids and everything. And we just thought everything was great. So during COVID, just everything changed. I think for a lot of people, everything changed very quickly during COVID. And we noticed things that we weren't really happy about in this area, just with how school closures were handled. And I mean, just the state of Washington in general. We just didn't like how things were being done. So we probably still would have stuck it out, depending on a variety of circumstances. But my sister, who I'm very close with, I've got 2 sisters, but one of my sisters, we're only 14 months apart, and we had built homes in the Hawkinson area of, Clark County, which is kind of northeast Vancouver. We'd built homes next to each other. And about 6 months, maybe not even that long into COVID, she was like, I'm trying to homeschool. It's not going well. I am going to go to Idaho, because Washington schools were shut down for like forever, basically. So she did that. I had gotten my kids into a private school out here, which was awesome. So she decided to go to Idaho, get her kids in school. And that kind of started like opening the door for us visiting Idaho and exploring it. And we still were not thinking like we're ever going to move to North Idaho, but it definitely opened the door. It was my sister's decision, her and her husband's decision to go out to the Coeur d'Alene area, get the kids in school, have access to public education in a way that we could not have access to it here in Washington State. And as she was over there, we started visiting. We loved it out there and could see ourselves raising our kids out there. And obviously having family in the area was a huge draw. So that was the first reason, was that my sister went. I think that if she would have gone somewhere else, we probably would have also explored going somewhere else. But she and her husband chose North Idaho, and that opened the door for the family heading in that direction. So that was the big first thing that got us out there. The second thing really was, so during COVID, we had gotten our kids into a private school, which my little ones had already been at a local Christian private school for the daycare aspect. So 2 kids were already there, and then our schools didn't reopen, and I'm a full-time working mom. So remote learning was not going well. So I was in a decision of like, I need to really choose here, what I want to do and put my kids in a position that they are going to be successful. And my kids love being around other kids. They love school. So we got them into the private school, which was a huge blessing. And that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years. And it's been going really well. But as I just keep thinking about this, like, do I really want to spend, like the next 13 years paying for private school for 4 kids? And that's a huge expense. And there's a lot of things you can do with that money. And to be able to live in an area where the public schools are so good, and you can just put your kid on a bus and then they go to school and then you see them when they get off of the bus. That sounds awesome. Like, I want to sign up for that. So we have loved our school that the kids are in out here, but also the draw of just financially as a family to be able to have kind of a different lifestyle where mom can be home a little bit more and not working quite so much to pay for the private school for all the kids. That was a huge draw. It's just cost of living. Understandably, home prices in North Idaho are not cheap. Home prices in Clark County, Washington are also not cheap. So for us, that's kind of moving across the board. It's same difference per area in terms of cost of living for the houses. But cost of living in terms of other amenities out there is a lot less. Even if we did want to put our kids back into private school in Hayden, Coeur d'Alene area, the cost is like almost half of what it is here. So, I mean, that I think it's a lot harder. From what I'm learning, it's a lot harder to get your kids into private school in North Idaho because it's probably just more accessible because it's not so dang expensive. Even when I was calling around to preschools for my youngest, they were like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry. The price is going to be this year. It just went up. It's going to be X amount. And I just was like, I can handle that because it was like half of what I was paying for full-time care for my youngest here. So cost of living outside of homes, the other amenities, it seemed to be more reasonable price-wise. So that was a huge draw. So like things kind of started adding up. Like, okay, like sister is there. Public schools are awesome. If we wanted to go private, if we can get in, because you got to be patient, then it still would be more affordable than where we're living right now. And then things in Washington just continue to get under our skin. And like in Clark County, especially since Vancouver is right across the Columbia River from Portland, Oregon, we just were seeing, like, everybody, maybe you don't know, but like if you want to Google it or look up what was going on in Portland during like the riots in 2020 and during COVID, like it was crazy. So Portland used to be a place where, like, even when I was in high school, like me and my friends would like go down to Portland to go to concerts, or I used to love to go shop in downtown Portland. I loved Portland. And now it is like more like a third world country. Like there are tents everywhere. Like the drug problem is all over the place. I have to take my youngest into Portland for to see a neurologist every once in a while. And like the park next to that children's hospital are like overrun with tents. Like it doesn't even feel very safe. And we call it the Portland creep, that's coming into our area, that we're seeing more and more of that. And I have a lot of compassion for homelessness and just the state that these people are in, that they're having to live on the streets. But also, if I'm choosing an area to raise my kids that's going to be safe, it would be an area that does not have so much of that. So that was a big one also. And then during COVID, everyone saw it, like everyone started moving. It was like ping, 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 like, oh, we can work from home now, or, you know, different job opportunities, or just there's been like this mass migration of people throughout the United States, right? Like I've seen a huge influx. Like most of my buyers in Clark County are from out of state, and a lot of my closest friends here left in the last couple of years. So like my sister left. I've had family move back to the Midwest. I've had like some of my best friends, like job opportunities took them out of state, or some of them just decided that they wanted to go try a different state. So it kind of felt like, okay, this, like the slate is being wiped clean here, where it's not like I am having to say goodbye to so many people, because like so many of these people have already said goodbye to me. So honestly, in that sense, it's like, okay, well, I'm like kind of starting over one way or another in Clark County. So if I move, like I'm going to be starting over there. I'll be starting over here in terms of friends and everything. I do still have some very dear friends in the Vancouver area that I love and adore and will stay in touch with. But probably of my closest 7 friends, 5 of them left in the last couple of years. So that kind of made it a little easier. That Band-Aid had been ripped off. And then the final thing that my husband and I just kept coming back to is we really want to raise our kids in a place where they would want to raise their kids. So what we kind of saw in Southwest Washington is, and I'm just being very real here, and I'm sure a lot of people have very different opinions on this, and compared to a lot of other places, Southwest Washington is still fantastic and relatively safe and all that jazz. But what we felt more comfortable with was knowing that I think North Idaho in the next 20 or 30 years is going to still be a pretty safe place to be and to raise kids. Whereas in Southwest Washington, like, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure how things are going to go, and if like the drug and homeless problem is going to get better, or if it's going to get a lot worse. And like, how long is Inslee going to be governor, and how, like, are things here going to change and get better, or are we just like waiting for something that might not happen? So that was kind of one thing, is like, we just felt so much better imagining our kids growing up in North Idaho, and like the level of safety The size of the community, just like more smaller and intimate. It honestly reminds me of how Camas felt in the 90s and early 2000s, just not so, like, because the Vancouver area has just grown tremendously in the last decade. So Coeur d'Alene, I know Coeur d'Alene is going to grow a lot. And I know a lot of people who already live in Coeur d'Alene area are not like thrilled about the influx, but it's bound to happen one way or another. And there's like, they're doing something so well there that it makes sense that it's going to keep growing and growing and growing. And we get that. We know that, you know, the area is not going to stay small forever, but we're getting it at a time where we feel like we can raise our kids in a place that is still relatively small and safe and like a really strong community. And that is what we are excited about. So that is why we are giving up what we have built here. We just built our dream home in Southwest Washington 2 years ago. And that was a huge process because we had developed the land and did like the home design completely from scratch. And we built this big house where every kid has a room and a great bonus room and the office, you know, all of it is exactly how we wanted it. And we thought we are going to live here for the rest of our life. We're on acreage, but not too far out, like all of these things. But without family so nearby and with all of the other parts of the equation, we just felt like, you know, a house isn't everything. And raising our kids in a place that we feel like super good about is going to be the best thing. So that is why we decided to move to North Idaho in a nutshell.